Master Jesus, once more we are gathered in your name, in the expectation to increase the little we know, to be better in our skin with your own mediumship. Allow our benefactors to give us the intuition to ask questions, to even create doubts, as that is very positive to our future. Be with us today and always. So be it. Hi everyone, as I like to say every time we start a study, this is not a lecture. I would like to encourage you all to ask questions, regardless if you think it is related or not with the subject we are studying today. If it is anything at all related to mediumship, this is the right place to do it. Sometimes we receive the intuition to make questions because someone that are with us need to hear about it. Or somewhere along the line, this question or this doubt is connected with what we are talking and we do not know. So please feel free to do it. This is not a lecture. This is a place where we should be feeling comfortable enough to share our doubts, have questions, share our experiences. This is part of what we want to do, okay? So let me share with you all the book. Today, as you probably remember, we are in chapter 4, item 40. And the topic we start today is the hallucination theory. Just a quick reminder, Kardec in this chapter called Theory is giving us some examples that have been considered during his time and is still very present nowadays. I think that if not 100% of what he brought to us, at least 99.9% still very present nowadays in our lives. Of course, we have to think about how was his time and how it is applicable in our time, but it's still pretty much valuable. The hallucination theory. Another opinion which is less offensive because it has a scientific nuance, entails attributing the phenomena to an illusion of senses. Thus, observer might be of good faith, but they see something that is not really there. When they see a table rise and remain suspended in the air without any sensible support, it means that the table did not actually move. They seeing it is in the air is due to an illusion or some kind of refractory effect like that, which make us see in the water a reflection of a star or some other objects that appears to have been dislocated from its true position. That may be possible, but those who have witnessed this particular phenomenon are able to affirm that the table really was suspended because they were able to walk underneath it, which would have been quite difficult if it had not actually left the ground. Additionally, many times after having been raised, the table breaks when it hits the floor. Could that also be an optical illusion? So let me just increase a bit the test, because I think that may help people to see if they're using small portable equipment like. But is it any different than today? Of course, we don't play with tables anymore, but the phenomena is the same. And the amount of time that people say that, no, that's not possible, this is this is that, this is a chemical reaction, this is an illusion, this is magic or whatever, still very present nowadays. So people that do not want to believe or want to discredit the Spiritism, they will always find a way to do it. When I say a way to do it, means a way to convince himself that is the thing. But if the person decides to have a thorough analysis of how the thing is conducted, how it really happens, very unlikely he or she will remain with the states of mind. A well-recognized physiological cause may undoubtedly make us see something turns which is not actually moving at all, or make us feel as though we are spinning when the fact we are standing still. However, when several persons are gathered around a table that is pulled by a movement that is so rapid that it is difficult to follow, some are even knocked down. Could they have suddenly been overcome with vertigo like a drunkard, or who believes he sees his house pass right in front of him? A lot of people, regardless the knowledge, regardless the exposure to the phenomena, still prefer to think that's something else. Why is that? Many reasons. Fear is one of them. Do not want to be committed is another one. Do not want to study seriously the matter to be able to understand is another one. So we have many different reasons not to. So this is something that I think is pretty common even nowadays, and we kind of get used to it.
Gil, it's Christine.
Hi, Christine.
Hi. I just wanted to say that when we were at our son's, he's got many books, different books written by many different authors. And there was one, and it was about all different types of religions and about Spiritism. And it talked about the fact that they're just delusions. They're not, it's not real. And we had a long conversation about that, and that conversation hasn't finished, because I said to him, I want you to watch the Kardec movie, and when I see him again, then we're going to talk some more, because I said, it's, you know, if there's one person that says, I saw a table move, or I saw an object in front of me move, one might say, oh, well, that was one person. But if there's more than one that see the same thing, what's causing the illusion?
How many?
Hi, Guilherme. Hi, everyone. Guilherme, it's very important to say that there are many ways to do the same thing. And it's not because you prove you can do it in one way that the other way cannot happen. Sometimes it is like that. And especially at this turn of the 19th to the 20th century, people were trying to show, tricks that you can do to, create these illusions. But it doesn't mean that in this case, in this particular case, it is an illusion, because it's something else happening. But some people, they just want to accept the easiest solution, and perhaps the one that is convenient to them, as Guilherme said, because they don't want to accept it is possible. Because if they do, there are many things that come with that. If you accept that, you have to change a lot of things in your life, in your way of thinking. So people prefer to say, oh, you see that magician, he does something similar. Well, but it doesn't mean that, what we see in the Spiritist manifestation, material manifestation, is exactly the same thing that, a magician just does. And then people just said, oh, well, you can do that this way. Well, but it doesn't mean that the other way is not possible. We know that in many aspects of life, that things can be done in different way. So because you prove it can be done this way, it doesn't, make that other way impossible or invalid.
Very good point, Munir. And just to continue using that description from Christine, it's not because it's written in a book that means that's true, right? Even a Spiritist book written by a person, we need to be attentive. Sometimes that could be this particular person perception about that subject. It does not mean it's right, it doesn't mean it's true. So that's why we always have to be very careful with a kind of information we want to bring on board, right? Imagine if we all have had access to the very same book Christine had in his son's place, and we all believe that Spiritism is fake. That's it. I don't need to read anything else. I don't need to consider anything else. I'm happy with that information because that fulfills my expectation. Because I don't want to be bothered with the phenomena. I don't want to be bothered with studying or doing charity or anything else. So I bought a book who says Spiritism is not real. So I'm very happy with that. So likewise, internet, we need to be very thorough in what we read on the internet in regards to consider that's true or makes sense or not making sense. Even when we are in the lecture in the Spiritist Center, we need to be careful. We're still learning. So perhaps the person that is doing the lecture, he misunderstood something. I'm not saying it's not valid what he's doing, not at all. But the way he perceived something perhaps is not complete as he should, or he put too much of what he believes or he wants into his lecture. So we need, that's why I always try to give incentive to everyone, to every individual to create his own awareness about the subject. The book is there for everyone. The very same book I studied on the beginning is there to everyone to read. So I encourage everyone to study by him or herself, because that's the only way we can work together to make things more reliable for the future. Hi, Elsa.
Jeremy, I just want to add to that. It's the opposite side to that is also true. Some people believe that everything is the work of the Spirit. Oh, I lost my keys. Oh, it's the work of the Spirit. Oh, I felt something dropped on my head. It's the work of the Spirit. The Spirit pushed me. The Spirit, everything is the same thing, but on the opposite side. We should study, we should understand, and we should analyze. And before saying, blaming this or that for that, we should look at that very carefully and analyze as Kardec is doing.
Totally agree with you. Hi, Elsa.
Yes, that's a small contribution in this subject. I think most of the people here knows Guy Leon Playfair, the author. He wrote The Flying Cows, that make a lot of things about mediumship, Chico Xavier. And he wrote Chico Xavier, the Medium of the Century, that we published here in the UK. And he was researching about Uri Geller. And I spent many, many hours, more than a year, with Guy Playfair every week, talking, and he showed me all his research, proving the action of the spirits and some action only for the person, the power of the person. But in my mind, all of us, we are surrounded by the spirits, even turning tables, or the spirits were there, even the magician, the spirits are there, or taking opportunity to play together or make love, etc. But at the end of the day, we are spirits surrounded by spirits. Whatever we do, wherever we go, if you have the power of magnetism, transport a coin outside to inside the close the cup or close a garrafa, I forgot in English, the bottle. So it's the action that the spirits are together as well, but not only spirits, not only as ourselves. And the magician has the power to know how to do a lot of tricks in her under her arms or their pockets. But the Guy Playfair has books and proving a lot of things and helping us to understand the power of the spiritism that is govern the world. All that.
Very good. Very
Can
good.
I say something?
Sure.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, goody. I was like, I'm going to try, but thank goodness. Anyway, I think we have discussed this part here many times in our course. And again, we need to go back to, let's see what the work is really trying to say and what the real message is behind this, using our intelligence, as you said, Guilherme, you know, to kind of see what makes sense, what does make sense, what people really want to say. Because many people use great words, many things, say so much, and at the end, there is no message in this content. And so many people say so little, and there is a great message. And like many times we are here, we just don't analyze the content that we are absorbing from any place. We have everything kind of mushed up and give to us, like a process, like how we mush the food to give to our babies. We go to Google and we search this. We go to this site and have that information all ready for us. But we always, at all the time, as we discuss here, as you said, Guilherme, Elsa, all of you who coordinate this course, for us to use a common sense, for us to really go, right, what really is the message here? Because it's very easy to be just going with the flow and not really stop and think about what is really there.
That's very true. That's indeed very true. So if you guys are happy, I'll move on to the next one, item 41. The crackling tendon theory. If such were the case with the sense of sight, it would be no different than hearing. But when all the raps are heard by an entire group, they cannot reasonably be attributed to an auditory illusion. Also, we have dismissed the whole notion of fraud, since attentive observation has proven that there was no fortuitous or material cause involved. Just to be sure what he's talking about, if I crack my fingers, if I move my tendons, if I make noises with my own physical body, it's not enough to have everyone, let's say in a theater, because things like that used to happen in a theater at the time, to be convinced. Because the person perhaps that in the seat close to the person, yes, he could hear the noise. But the person that is on the very back far seat, he or she would not. So that's what he's talking about here. It is true that a learned physician has given a peremptory explanation for the matter, according to his own opinion. The cause results from the voluntary or involuntary contraction of the muscles, tendons of the fibula. And with respect to this subject, he used the most complete anatomical minutiae, I don't know how to pronounce that thing, to demonstrate the mechanism for producing this crackling noise, to imitate the beating of a drum, and even to perform rhythmic areas. I don't know what it is either. Thus, he concluded that those who hear the raps from a table are victims of either a hoax or of an illusion. This fact in itself is nothing new. Unfortunately, for the author of that alleged discovery, his theory cannot explain away all the cases. First, let us state that those who are gifted with the strange ability to make the tendon of the fibula or any other tendon crackle at will and play musical arias are exceptional creatures. Making tables crackle is quite common Those who have the ability rarely have the ability to do the other. Let me stop here a bit. When we want to convince ourselves of something, we will always find a way to make ourselves more comfortable with what we want. Here's another possibility of someone trying to justify the phenomena by something he felt was right. I'm not saying that person was trying to gain or had a bad intention at all. He was trying only to justify what he believed was happening. But as Kardec said here, not everyone can do that thing. And another point that's very interesting here, Kardec highlighted to us that phenomena of turning tables was so common at that time in Europe and America that it wouldn't be possible to have everyone cracking the muscles and everything to do it, right? Second, the doctor forgot to explain how the cracking tendons of a person who is motionless and some distance from the table can produce vibrations that may be sensed by the touch. How the crackles can be heard by the participants at will and in various areas of the table, in other furniture, in walls, in ceilings, etc. How finally the action of the tendon can extend to the table that is not being touched at all and make it move by itself. Besides, if this theory really explained anything at all, it would only invalidate the rap phenomenon, but would not apply to all the other modes of communication. To people that are not familiar with what rap is, basically are noises that may happen in the wall, on the ceiling, on the floor, and there are continuous sounds. And they could not justify that. This is what they call raps. Consequently, we conclude that its author has judged without having seen anything sufficiently. I need to stop here. I think this is one thing that is very important in any situation, in the Spiritism or not. There's a lot of people talking about a lot of things that they only saw in a book. And as I said, there are books and books. Before we establish a theory, before we convince ourselves about something, we have an obligation to have an exposure before we establish a theory. Or you cannot do this with mediumship. You cannot do that with mediumship. That's not truly mediumship. This is not spiritism, blah, blah, blah. I hear that for many years. And then sometimes I make a question. How often you participate in a mediumship meeting? Do you participate in a mediumship meeting? When was the last time you spoke with your benefactor? When was the last time your benefactor gave you an instruction telling you that's possible or not possible? Most of the time, I had no answer. So we need to be open to engage ourselves in studies. This should be like that forever. But we also have to have exposure to something before we start to elaborate theories and start to create patterns. This is right, this is wrong, you can do it, you cannot do it. This is it, this is mediumship, this is not mediumship. This is animism, this is not animism. Because a lot of people jump to conclusions very quickly, regardless the age, regardless the time in the doctrine. So we have to be exposed before we really say something about it. Otherwise, as Kardec says, what we are doing. I try not to use very harsh words, but what we are doing, elaborate theories that we do not know from experience, or we know only in the boundaries of our experience. Remember that we have thousands of spiritist institutions. Do you really believe they all have exactly the same experience everywhere in the world? I don't think so. So if we want to be fair, we have to listen. If you want to argue if it's right or not, can be done, cannot be done, we have to study the matter. We have to be exposed to the matter, and then we can elaborate theories. And then I think it's fair to elaborate theories. Remember, Kardec. Hello?
Sorry, Gil, it's Christine again. Do we call it a doctrine or a body of knowledge? What's the best way to refer to Spiritism? The doctrine or a body of knowledge?
Depends who you ask. Depends who you ask. The Spiritism was born in France in the 1800s. And Kardec called it a doctrine of spirits. There are a lot of people that feel uncomfortable with that. People that try to modify the words, people that try to modify the meaning as well. So that's why I say, depend who you ask. The Spiritism doctrine is a philosophy of life, it's a body of knowledge. One thing do not eliminate the other. Likewise, nowadays, if we say some words we used to say when we were young, people tell us that we are racist, we are homophobic, we are a few other things. So I leave that open to the people perception, to the area, to the intentions. But on the end of the day, they are just words. The importance is the meaning of the word. And I'll leave that with every one of you. You decide how you want to call. I call doctrine. I learn as a doctrine, Spiritist doctrine. I don't see a problem with that. If you want to call body of knowledge, perfect. I don't see a problem with that. If you want to call philosophy of life, perfect. So I try not to be rigid with words, especially because words do not mean anything. What is behind word? Yes, this is important. All right. I hope I have answered your question, Christine. It is always lamentable that in addressing a subject they are unfamiliar with, scientists hurry to give explanations that the fact themselves believe. I don't know what this word means. I beg your pardon. English definitely is not my first language.
Sorry, Guilherme, belie just means that they kind of demonstrate, really.
Okay, cool. Thank you. I haven't seen you there. Their own knowledge should make them more circumspect in their judgments, especially when such a knowledge broadens the boundaries of the unknown. When we were reading this thing here, something that's very recent in our life came to my mind. During the top of the COVID pandemic, the scientists were arguing about the utilization of a drug that exists for more than 60 years, a drug that saved thousands of lives, including mine, in Africa, because it's a drug used to treat malaria. Suddenly, nobody could use that drug because it would kill people. And because I was exposed to that drug, because I had to use that drug, Because when we go to certain areas in the globe, doctors really recommend us to use that drug to prevent us, not to avoid us to get malaria, but to prevent us to get malaria to the point there was no return. I could not understand. How is it possible? You know, why I'm bringing that subject here? Just for the sake of a bunch of scientists say one thing, a bunch of science say something else. Who is right, who is wrong? It's up to us to evaluate, to analyze, to bring what they are telling to our own experiences, and then make up our mind. I'm here.
Oh, hi, Guilherme. I've got a very good example about this situation. You know, people, they are scientists, they are famous, sometimes very competent in their fields, and they think that their opinion in any field is valid and or perhaps more assertive than, you know, from other people. And during the pandemic, I read an article written by she's a biologist, biochemist. She was on TV basically every day talking about the coronavirus and the disease and everything else. And she signed an article and she published in this, I think it's a British magazine called The Skeptic. And basically saying that spiritism was rubbish and homeopathy was rubbish. They were linking the two together, proving, you know, one was false, the other one was also, you know, something that didn't produce good results. And basically just claiming the same things we've been hearing since Kardec time, you know, just this opinion saying that, for instance, the Fox sisters in the US, after all the phenomena that were witnessed, were published at the time, they just stuck to one article that said that at the end they denied everything, but that wasn't all. It was just one publication claiming that. But, well, they weren't careful enough to analyze that, but they are using their reputation. They were using their degree as such to talk about something they don't understand. They don't understand at all. So it's very much what Kardec is saying here, rushing to give their opinion, to accepting that as truth. And the idea of this skeptical is to fight pseudoscience. As they claim, psychic sciences, they are pseudoscience, they are not true science. But they weren't careful enough to read what they call psychoscience and understand it in depth to give their opinion and write this article. I found that there was something against their own degree, because if you have a degree, a PhD in something, you are expert in that something. You're not expert in everything else. And if you want to give your opinion about something else, you have to study that in depth, perhaps do a second PhD in that. So your opinion will be reasonable, will be supported by evidence, by, you know, a study in depth, but that is not the case. And we see that a lot. People talking about things they don't know, they know nothing or very close to nothing.
Munir, before I let the words to Lise, I don't think I have mentioned that here, but even in Spiritism, everything I used to say, I like to experiment, to try first, especially mediumship, because to speak about something, I have a commitment with myself to be exposed to that thing first. Then I can argue, I can protect, I can say a theory, I can elaborate. Only through books, I will say, I never been exposed to this. What I found was a study made by someone else, but I cannot elaborate further because I wasn't there. I wasn't part of it. Let me mention something about homeopathy. Until I was 28 years old, I never considered homeopathy to myself. Never. There was no need for it, right? I was very happy in the pharmacy buying something and taking, that was it. And then my son was born. He tried things for more than one country, because at the time I was traveling around the world and I was bringing drugs from different countries, America, France, England, everything, and nothing works. Nothing works. His pediatrician said one day, he's so deep into drugs, he's so intoxicated. And he said to me and to my wife, try homeopathy. The doctor, an allopath, said that. Try homeopathy. And we did. I saved my son's life. I can't describe in a different word. I saved my son's life. The amount of time I had to go with him to a hospital before that was very unpleasant. And I'm talking a kid that was 2 years old, 3 years old when things exploded. From that moment, I've started to consider homeopathy with a different pair of eyes. To give you an idea, I even tried with my daughter, she's a bit older than my son, before, but I never, it's just something else, no, it doesn't work. When you read the article, that thing is not true or whatever. You believe in what you want to believe, right? But after my son, it has changed my opinion because I was exposed to that. And even today, we at home, we all treat ourselves with homeopathy. It doesn't mean that when we have to use allopathy, we don't use, not at all, we use what we have to use. A serious homeopath doctor will give you allopathy drugs when it's required as well. And I was exposed as well to a group of healing, as we call here, that we were giving assistance to a lot of people. And our benefactors, quite often, they recommended the use of homeopathy. So I know nothing, but I know what I saw. I know what I was exposed to. And people will say create a lot of theories about that as well. Have you been exposed to that? Have you tried? Have you really tried? Not like tried once and that doesn't work, and that's it. No. We have to consider ourselves as responsible to everything we believe, to everything we share, to everything we try to promote, if I may say like that. So we have to be very thorough and being exposed to a matter before we elaborate theories. Hi, Liz. Sorry to make you wait.
No, that was great. I was just reflecting upon what you said, what Muni said, and I have my opinions about scientific exploration of subjects, because even when you put everything to the test, as Kardec says here, if you have not seen everything sufficiently, having all the facts that are and having your area of investigation in a sufficient way for you to take a conclusion that is safe to say, you can't really say much about one subject. I have many experiences in my life about mediumship, about spirits phenomena, and about homeopathy as well, because sometimes they can say, you know, as well as a pseudo pregnancy, you can also feel that you are good, like the placebo effect, and then nothing really is happening. But my experience with that was with my dog, and he doesn't have much of this sort of line of intelligence to have a pseudo anything. But what I really first of all thought of saying is Jesus always said, isn't it? You can only talk about what you know. And what you know is based on what you can understand of the experiences that you have. So we have lots of scientists, as Muniz said, that goes against everything, but they don't really want to investigate things seriously and seeing all the possibilities, because many scientists today are very rushed to get into a conclusion. And the conclusion is, I'd rather stick to the science that's going to give me all the love and recognition than really seriously investigate something and seeing all the facts and seeing all that is happening.
Liz, as we're talking about scientists, I read an article one time. It was perfect to me. A scientist, very unlikely to change his opinion. And science only evolves after the scientists passed away. Because some of them are stubborn creatures like we all are, and they do not accept to consider other options, other possibilities. So only after they no longer exist on Earth, when other person come with a different theory, a different pair of eyes, that things escalate a little bit. It's like we all are. Sometimes we stick to what we think we know, but we are so stubborn that we do not want to consider anything else.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That creates, yeah, go on.
And another thing is, like, whenever you investigate something, it's very difficult for you to take your own partial personal opinion from that. So not many people can detach and having really conclude a study impartially, because you can go in a journey through it and really, like Kardec went, we can see throughout the books the journey that Kardec went from being some scientists that really didn't really think that any of this could exist, to really investigating and open his mind to a new world. And you know, you can see throughout all the books, but it is really important for us always to keep an open mind.
We are stubborn creatures. When we manage to establish something that gives us comfort, we create what we call comfort zone, and we don't want to go away from that comfort zone. It's like that on the Spiritism as well. I think we all have the obligation to keep possibilities flowing back and forth. What I am comfortable today, I wasn't comfortable 20 years ago. What was comfortable 20 years ago, I was not comfortable 30 years ago. And I hope that things will always progress like that, because that means I am being exposed to something else. I'm willing to accept something new. I'm willing to accept that what I knew wasn't correct, wasn't sufficient. And I think we all have to be like that. Hi, Muniz.
Academic, just want to take this opportunity to say that first, that scientists, they receive a training to do science according to theories and evidence. This is the training, not that they know more about everything. No, they are trained on a specific aspect of a particular subject. So it's something very specific. They try to gather as much information about that particular aspect and use scientific method to come to a conclusion. But then when you read something, for instance, I've been reading about the origin of water on Earth. Where did it come from? If it was a hot ball at the beginning, where does the water come? And there are so many theories. Well, I've studied from this aspect, and in my opinion, it came from this way, scientists saying. But there are other groups that say, well, but there's also evidence from these experiments that say that perhaps it came from. So you never have certainty. You have possibilities. Well, it may have come, but I think that the one that most people agree is that it came from a comet or something that hit the Earth and brought all the water. So, and I don't accept that someone who's been trained to do proper research according to a scientific method feels that he or she can go and talk about everything and, without saying, well, this is my humble personal opinion. It's nothing more than that, because, I didn't specialize in that. So, but, people use this to basically to make people accept their own personal views and personal opinions, not scientific results. This is the thing, and it's something I don't accept from a scientist. I may accept from other people, but not a scientist that come to public to talk about something that is completely against the preparation that person received to be a scientist.
When you said that, Monia, something very present in my life at the moment came to mind. I'm working on a project where we expect new things to come. The main problem we have is to tell and convince people that what you know is not relevant. What you know, perhaps, is about to be dismissed. What you will face now is a paradigm to be broken. That because every time something new comes, perhaps will complete what you know, but perhaps will tell you that what you know is wrong. And people are not prepared to it. People are not prepared if the information is coming to complete what you know. But information arrives, confirmed, after being tested and asked again. And if that information is telling you that what you know is wrong, human beings, they create a barrier. I cannot be wrong. So it's very complicated, very complicated. So yeah, what time is it? I forgot the time. Now let's move a little bit more. Does anyone want to say anything before we go? No. Okay. The physical cause theory. From this point on, we will leave behind all theories of absolute denial. Let me stop here. Kardec is telling us here, we shouldn't bother the other things, If you don't want to believe, so be it. If you think what I'm doing is not positive, so be it. If you don't believe in what I'm saying, so be it. Let's not waste our energy with something like that. I have something to produce. If every time I want to produce something, I listen to those that say that I'm wrong, that does not work, that's not possible, I will never produce anything. I will stay in inertia. And that's applicable everywhere, even in my work environment. So I think we need to keep our mind open to possibilities. Having admitted the reality of phenomena, the first, though, that naturally occurred to those who witnessed them was to attribute the movements to magnetism, electricity, or the action of some kind of fluid, i.e., to an exclusive material and physical cause. I respect better that theory than the others. Because to someone that is deeply involved with electricity, with magnetism, he could see that working and producing things like that. So I respect that better. There was nothing unreasonable about this theory, and it would have prevailed if the phenomena had been limited to purely mechanical effects. What he's trying to say here is that if Spiritism had remained in the 1800s, only having knocks, raps, things that are physical, yes, perhaps could be explained by electricity, magnetism, and so on. But Spiritism has evolved. Spiritism has evolved from day one until today. And as Kardec predicted, will continue to evolve. So it cannot be cast in stone in a moment or in a time. It will evolve. So if we had only maintained those physical effects was something, but we moved far away from that. A circumstance that even seemed to corroborate in certain cases was the increase in the phenomenon's power because of the number of individuals present, that each one of them could be seen as an element of human electricity battery. I won't say anything here now, but perhaps in the future. As we have already stated, what characterizes a true theory is its ability to explain all the facts. This is very important, right? If your theory does not explain all the facts, or if your theory has one single exception, this is not theory. Because we used to say, humans used to say, this is the theory, except if there is an exception, is not theory. Is incomplete, at least. Okay? If one single fact contradicts it, it is because it is wrong, incomplete, or too rigid. Oh dear. This here is very important to me, because why I'm saying important to me, there's a lot of people in the Spiritism who say that that's not possible. This is unacceptable. This is this is that. I'm using Spiritism because we're talking about Spiritism here, right? But this is in life. In life, people are like that. I have very hard time to accept it, because people that are too rigid, they are missing opportunities. Talking about different creeds, what was too rigid, they almost died, or is having hard time to get more people on board. We have other creeds that can be like that. I don't want to say a name, but we have different creeds that are having hard time to convince people that what they say is right. They're so attached to those things that are so rigid that it's still like 2,000 years ago, even longer. And science today, thanks to science, it can be contradicted. Science, and even better, common sense can contradict things that are cast in stone for more than 2,000 years. Which is what applied in this case. The movements and raps revealed signs of intelligence in that they obeyed our will and responded to thought. I do not know electricity, magnetism giving answers, but it's a possibility. Thus, they had to have an intelligent cause behind them, and since the effect ceased to be mere physical, the cause itself had to be something other than physical. Therefore, the theory of an exclusive action by a material agent was abandoned and now only surfaced among those who make a priori judgment without seeing anything. I think that's very important too. We create preconcepts in our lives. We create preconcepts in the Spiritism. We all do. This is human. This is very human. But as we continue studying, and as we are acquainted to the immense quantity of knowledge in Spiritism, we have to revisit our prejudgments, our preconcepts. Having a prejudgment, having a preconcept is totally fine, as long as we are prepared to evaluate our concepts and adapt our concepts to what we start to bring into us or to what we are exposed. Hence, almost time, the crucial point is to attest to an intelligent action, a point that can convince whomever wants to make the effort to observe. Today, I love Kardec. I really do, because I think he's so brilliant. Until today, I think he's brilliant, totally brilliant. I hope you all are moving an extra leg to read a book, to get exposed to other Spiritist books, to other lectures, to other studies. And it is our obligation to observe, to make an effort to observe. As I say quite often, I'm not here to convince anyone. I don't care if you believe in what I say or not. I'm not here to convince you all. I'm not here to convince any of you. I'm here to motivate you to convince yourselves by your exposure to books and to experience. That's the only thing. That's the only thing. And I hope that on the end of our study, that eventually will move to something else, you have that in yourselves. You know, I want to read another thing. I want to expose myself to another thing. I want to try something else. And keep possibilities open. Because if on the end of this book, I cannot motivate you all to allow yourselves to grow, to allow your beliefs to grow, I fail. Because that's my goal. I don't need to. Kardec did everything. Kardec did everything. He's all there. As I said, he was wonderful. He is wonderful in every sense of the word. You just need to read the book if you want. But my goal is to make you guys open up, open your hearts, open your mind, as he tried 1800 years ago. That was his goal. He brought knowledge and he hoped to change humanity. I don't expect to do that at all. I'm too far away from that, but I hope that I can change your perception. And if you open up for different perceptions, for different possibilities, I'm pretty sure that you open up yourselves to practice charity in a more broader way than we do today. Because a lot of people use words, books, references, etc., not to do charity as they should. We don't need Spiritism, we need Catholicism, we don't need anything, any philosophy. If we stick to one thing, love one another. In the Spiritism, we have a sentence that love one another and educate yourselves. So I'll stick to this one. If we are able to do only what is in that sentence, we are already moving to a different and better place.